Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to cover what we're going to be doing day one, and that's going to be the squat. We're going to do a lower body day. The other thing to keep in mind too is we're going to progress these movements. So like if you're at home or you're in your basement and you have minimal equipment, I'll show you how to load that squat. But just become familiar with the movement, with all these movements this first week. That way when we get back into the classroom week 2, we can troubleshoot some things and then do some advanced progressions just to kind of get everybody caught up. So the squat today, we're going to give you guys some coaching cues, some things to understand whether you've squatted or haven't squatted before. It's a pretty easy movement. I'm going to ask this week that we make sure that you guys are exploring, if you've never done it before, to find a way that's comfortable that works for you. So we'll start with the bottom up. When we get into our squat stance, we want to make sure that our feet are about hip width apart. We want to make sure that they're stacked under us. Right, so when we get into this position, it doesn't really matter what my toes are doing. Some of us might have been taught to go toes straight forward or toes out to the side. Just find something that works for you. So if you were to look at my toes and how that looks, you would see that one is a little bit more straight and the other one is a little bit more open, and that's okay. We just want to make sure that we find something that's comfortable for our hips. So when we do that, when we get our hips into the floor, we want to create a little bit of tension. So what that means is I would pretend like this platform here is like a rug carpet and I'm trying to tear it apart. So I would create a little bit of tension with my feet to kind of tear that rug apart so that can kind of turn on the back of my legs, my hamstrings, and my hips, okay? So once I have my feet set, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to kind of pretend like I'm sitting in an invisible chair. So I'm going to reach back with my hips and with my butt to hit that chair. Right? So I'll be in this position, I've got a little bit of tension with my feet, so I'll reach those hips back as I spread my knees till I hit parallel. One thing to keep in mind when we're doing these squats is in order, I want to be able to squat in between my knees, not over my knees. So when I go on the descent, right, my feet are fixed into the ground, I want to make sure that my thighs are going out so I can squat in between into the hips and back up. We're not over the top of the knees, falling forward and dipping that way. We're creating space by spreading the legs apart, sitting down, and coming back up again. So that's what it should look like from a straight on view. If you're at home and you have no way to load it, a really good thing to do is to grab a backpack full of books, and you can just hold it in front of you, right? So just like if I was to grab a weight, if I had a backpack full of books, you could just hug that weight, and then you could go ahead and do your squat variation that way. If you have dumbbells at home, you can just grab a dumbbell, hold it right here like a goblet hold in front of you, and do your squats that way. If you have access to a barbell, obviously you can get under the barbell, get your feet set, create that tension into the floor, and do your squat, okay? So the big thing to keep in mind, right, outside of the tension into the floor and then squatting in between your knees, we want to make sure that our chest is up. If you have a little bit of a forward bend, that's totally fine, but we need to make sure that there's at least some tension in our midsection there to keep us from crumbling from that. The other thing, when we talk about parallel, unless we're really tall, parallel for most of us is when I go down when my hamstrings are level with the floor. If you have really long legs or really long levers, you can stop just above parallel or whatever is comfortable for you as well. But we want to make sure that that movement can be performed somewhat smoothly no matter what depth you're going to. Okay? So that is the squats. The next thing we're going to cover is the reverse lunge. So for your reverse lunge, just like with our iso lunge that we did in our warm-up, we're actually just going to start straight forward, right? All I'm going to do, I'm going to keep my chest up, I'm going to fix one leg into the ground, and I'm just going to reach backward with that leg, and then I'm going to come up this way. Just going to alternate left leg, right leg. Again, my chest is up, torso stacked. You're going to feel a little bit of a stretch in that trail leg as you go up. Okay? But one thing you want to make sure of is that that knee is tracking right over your toe. So when you do your lunge, right, we're not popping over here, popping in here. If you need to do that or you're feeling that, make sure you have that same tension into the floor like you're tearing into the floor, and then step back to keep that knee stacked above that toe. So that's the reverse lunge. We'll do a forward lunge variation also a little bit later in the week too. Third thing we're going to do, move right over here. We're going to do isolated, they're called supine hip thrusts. So this setup is gonna be familiar if you're used to doing yoga. What you're gonna do is you're gonna be on your back, flat back, shoulder blades on the ground. Okay, I'm gonna have my heels planted into the ground. I'm gonna take my belly button and I'm gonna push it up toward the ceiling. And when I get to that top part where my glutes are locked out, my hamstrings are on stretch, I'm gonna go ahead and hold that position for 30 seconds. But again, hi Bo, heels are into the ground. I'm pressing up through that midsection. My glutes are turned on, but I'm trying to get my belly button as close to the ceiling as I can, and I'm gonna hold that position for 30 seconds, okay? The next and last exercise we're gonna do is just a standard plank. The one thing with the plank to remember is we're gonna try to create as much tension as we can in the middle of our body and hold that position. So, when I do a plank and I'm setting up for the plank, I'm typically going to be on my forearms, okay? And I'm gonna get into a push-up position, but I'm on my forearms. So a couple things that you'll notice is when I'm down on the ground, I'm pushing myself away from the ground, okay? So my forearms are in and I'm kind of pushing myself out. So I'm in essence rounding my shoulder blades there. And then I'm really gonna dig into the ground with my feet as well. So, set up, I'm gonna be on my forearms and my feet, and I'm gonna try to hold a nice level parallel position here with my midsection and with my back. Just like we did in the warm-up with those push-ups or push-up holds, I wanna pretend like there's a cup of something on the small of my back, and I don't want that thing to tip over or to spill. So we really just wanna kind of shorten our midsection, right? Push our ribs down, suck our belly button towards our spine, whatever you wanna tell yourself to get a good abdominal brace there and hold that position. So, good job, and then next time we'll see you and we'll do an upper body day for day 2 as well.